So we are starting to talk about peripheral nervous system, which includes right here, includes two branches. It's the sensory branch and the motor branch. So I mentioned before that another term for the sensory is afferent. Think about this. When you're sensing something, it affects you, right? Now, the motor branch is called efferent, and sort of mnemonic rule here is that your motor actions, they produce an effect. Okay? So it's not a rule of thumb, it's a law. Sensory signals go from the periphery towards the central nervous system. In our case, it's going to be either brainstem or spinal cord. And the motor outputs, as you remember, go away from the central nervous system towards the effectors. Okay? So what are the effectors of the nervous system? Does anyone remember? Effectors of the nervous system. Muscles and glands. But we have three different types of muscles, which are smooth, cardiac, and skeletal, right? Which type of muscles we can control voluntarily? Skeletal muscles. Can we control glands? No. So, as you can see right here, within the efferent division of the peripheral nervous system, there are two sub-branches. There's a somatic and the autonomic branch. So, somatic branch, the effectors are skeletal muscles. The autonomic branch, also known as visceral, the effectors are cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and various glands. There's something super important that it's very simple and really important. When we talk about the motor responses, all responses produced by effectors are motor. Why this is important? Hear me out. If I tell you, give me an example of a motor response, before that statement, your answer would probably be, I dodge the ball when I play dodgeball, right? Something like that. Something that is associated with actual skeletal movement. But it doesn't have to. Increased heart rate is the motor response because it's mediated by the cardiac muscle. Dilation of your respiratory passages is the motor response. Salivation produced by a gland is a motor response. We clear? Awesome. So within the autonomic branch, you can also see the division into the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches. Okay, so for now, we're not going to touch a lot about this stuff, but for the future reference, sympathetic division, we also know these responses as fight or flight, and parasympathetic, rest and digest. Okay? It's just a sort of a mnemonic rule here. Okay, so structures in the peripheral nervous system that we're going to talk about will include sensory receptors, peripheral nerves, ganglia, and motor endings. So we're going to start with the general anatomy of a nerve. So within the nerve, the individual axons, each individual cell is wrapped in the connective tissue covering, very thin connective tissue, called endoneurium. This endoneurium-wrapped axons form bundles known as fascicles. By the way, the word fascist comes from the same origin. Fascia in Latin means a bunch, that's it. Okay, so fascicles contain a bunch of axons wrapped in endoneurium. Each fascicle is bound by perineurium, also connective tissue coverings. And then several fascicles are arranged into a single nerve, which is also covered by a connective tissue called epineuria. So here in this electron micrograph, you can see the blood vessels in the center of a nerve. You can see fascicles. You can see individually wrapped axons inside of the fascicle, and you can sort of see perineurium, individual endoneurium surrounding each axon, and epineurum that covers the entire nerve. So nerves, as anatomical structures, can contain fibers that are sensory or motor. So can a nerve contain only sensory fibers? Yes, rare. Very, very rare. Okay? Can it contain only motor? Yes, also rare. So I want you to think about nerves as roads. Most roads that you drive on are two-way roads.
Yes.
There are some roads that go one direction. So unidirectional roads are either sensory nerves that deliver the signal, the action potential towards the central nervous system, okay? Some nerves, or it's the motor or efferent nerves that deliver motor output away from the central nervous system to the effectors, but most nerves are mixed, okay, which means they contain both sensory and motor fibers. I'm going to ask that, go ahead.
So, sensory only go one way, motor only go one way, there can be bundles of both of them?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So all sensory nerves, if you think about, like if this is the receptor and this is the spinal cord, the nerve that connects them, if it sends the signals towards, it's sensory.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And
Vice versa.
vice versa. Yeah, out it's motor. So, in addition to sensory and motor division, there is, as we mentioned, division into somatic or visceral. So every fiber can be characterized based on these two categories, whether a fiber is somatic or visceral, or afferent versus efferent. And you should be able to pick the right description based on the information that I would provide. Let me give you some examples here. So for instance, if we are talking about a fiber, okay, that controls skeletal muscle. Remember, it's an example, okay? Skeletal muscle belongs to a somatic or a visceral branch? Somatic. Now, if we talk about the control over skeletal muscle, is that a motor or sensory?
Motor.
So what's the difference between somatic and visceral?
Let me give an example. Just that's the next one. Controls salivary glands. Are salivary glands controlled voluntarily? No. You cannot salivate
Right.
as you wish, which means is it somatic or visceral? Visceral. Everything that is not skeletal muscle means visceral. So, is the response by salivary glands, is that a motor response? Yes. Every action, whether it is voluntary or involuntary, whether it is a movement or a secretion, every action is a motor response. So this fiber that will deliver the output signal to the salivary gland will be categorized as visceral efferent. Now, let's say your tummy aches. Okay? Is that a sensation? Yes. Your tummy, does it contain any skeletal muscles? So it's a it's a viscera. It's viscera. Viscera is everything except nervous system and skeletal muscles. Everything that is not voluntarily controlled in any way. So you mentioned tummy ache, visceral, and it's a sensation, right?
Yes.
Which means
Sensory, visceral.
afferent
Afferent, visceral.
or sensory. Now, the word soma, what does it mean?
Is that the word who?
Soma, body. So, somatic sensations, where do they come from?
The body.
Can you be, well, tummy is the body.
Sensory.
Somatic sensations, we talked about it when we talked about somatosensory cortex, remember? Skin, muscles, bones, and joints. So we're talking about sensations such as touch, vibration, pain, position of contraction, position of a muscle or a joint, right? Things like that. So let's say you feel muscle stretch.
Yes.
Sure. But somatic or visceral? Muscle stretch, skeletal muscle stretch. Like somebody pulls my arm. Somatic. It's the part of the body that does not refer to other internal organs. Okay? So that's going to be somatic. and I feel stretch, sensory motor, you cannot answer yes to the question sensory or motor.
Oh, sensory.
Sensory.
Hey, Karen.
Clear? Makes sense? Okay. Now, a really cool thing about peripheral nerves is that, let's rephrase it. A really cool thing about peripheral neurons that they can regrow, unlike the neurons in the CNS. So this is what happens. Imagine that this is your axon that is being damaged, that being cut, okay? One important thing, if the damage happens to the soma, the nerve's gone, okay? So first, the fragment of an axon that is separated is destroyed. It's normal. And it's called Wallerian degeneration. Macrophages just clear it up. Next, your Schwann cells form what's called a regeneration tube. It's basically a guiding system. Within that guiding system, on the surface, inner surface of this regeneration tube, are so-called adhesion molecules. They're like goalposts, okay? Guiding posts, which direct the regrowth of the axon, and your axon regrows, right? It's myelinated, all hunky-dory. With one little but important feature. This. When the axon regrows, the pathway, the physical direction, does not match exactly the previous contacts, okay? So what does that mean in terms of the function? Imagine somebody gets the hand amputated. There's like accident at work, okay? And that person and their hand quickly brought to the ER, and the hand is being reattached, which is doable, okay? That make sense?
But all your nerves don't grow back.
Nerves will grow back. It's going to take time. But the problem is they're going to make connections to different skeletal muscles or different, basically the network of connections will be slightly different, which means your previous skill patterns recorded in premotor cortex aren't going to work. You have to basically relearn how to use your hand, but you can do it, yes.
So when them nerves regrow, do that mean like they will relive the pain they felt when they was?
No, they just going to be able to control that hand. Now,
Is that why most severe damage require rehabilitation?
probably, yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
So I have a nerve disability, and I was wondering if it's too far past the point of damage.
I don't know which one.
So the brachial plexus.
Okay.
So I was born in China, so they think that I was born and they pulled it
Mhm.
and they wrote. So I didn't come to the States until I was 3. My parents brought me to a bunch of different hospitals, but they couldn't do anything. Is like something like a nerve graft really able to be done when it's like at the time?
Probably, yes,
Yes.
because there is a scar tissue that is formed.
Okay, so they can't like go back.
Nope. At this point, if there are scarifications that will prevent, if there was a damage to the actual bodies of motor neurons, not much can be done. Okay? Now, the big difference, remember I basically annoyed you with a statement that, remember, oligodendrocytes are in the CNS, Schwann cells are in the PNS. This is important, this is important, this is why it is important. oligodendrocytes cannot grow and form regeneration tube, which means your neurons in the CNS cannot do that either. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. And this brings us to the discussion about cranial nerves. So first of all, I will not ask you to memorize the specific specific numbers for cranial nerves. In other words, I won't ask you, hold on, sorry about that. I won't ask you what is the number for vagus nerve. Okay, I find it just, if you can learn them, you know it, it's an easy question. If you can't learn them, it's not going to help. So I want to show you the pattern in which I personally do this with the cranial nerves on that image. I'm going to show you the couple of mnemonic rules, but this is the quick overview, okay? And for the purposes of brevity, here's what I'm going to do. CN stands for cranial nerve. Okay, just the acronyms, okay? And then the Roman number. Another thing that I'm going to use, S, M, or B. Sensory, motor, or both. Sounds good? So we're going to start with this guy. This is the cranial nerve 1. By the way, follow the pattern. I'm going to show you by arrows how you should count them. So cranial nerve 1, olfactory, okay, smell, sensory, okay. From here, you go, okay, hold on a second, I didn't want to do that, I wanted to do this, okay. You get to this nerve, okay. That is cranial nerve 2, optic, also a sensory. If you want, I can also include right now the words for the mnemonic rule, okay? So we have the whole picture in a complex. Should I? So olfactory goes on, optic nerve, occasion, okay? From the optic nerve, we move on to the cranial nerve 3, which is oculomotor. For our purposes, oculomotor nerve is motor, and the word for the mnemonic rule is hour. From the cranial nerve 3, we move to cranial nerve 4. Cranial nerve 4 is called trochlear. It is also a motor nerve. The mnemonic rule, trusty. From the cranial nerve 4, we go to cranial nerve 5, which is trigeminal. It will be both motor and sensory. The word is truck. You can notice that the first letter of the word in the mnemonic rule matches the first letter of the name of the nerve. From the cranial nerve 5, not surprisingly, we go to cranial nerve. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out the best position. Okay, 6. Okay? So cranial nerve 6 is abducens. So this is the abducens nerve. It is motor nerve. And the word is acts. From the cranial nerve 6, we move on to the cranial nerve 7. So this is cranial nerve 7, known as facial, both, and the word is funny. Very close to the cranial nerve 7 is the cranial nerve, and we're just moving along. So cranial nerve, cranial nerve 8, vestibulocochlear, entirely sensory nerve, and the word is very.
Okay, wait a minute.
What?
Where do you say 7 is at?
Okay. Let me show you. This is the cranial nerve 7.
Okay.
Okay? And this is the cranial nerve 8. They're very close to each other.
So that's the facial and the vestibule.
Vestibulocochlear.
Okay.
Yes. Then we have, sorry. We keep going in the same direction. If you don't mind, I'm going to remove that stuff here. We keep going into the same direction. So we end up right now with a cranial nerve 9, which is glossopharyngeal, both, and the word for it, good. This is perhaps the most well-known nerve. It's the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10. Okay? Also both motor and sensory. The word is vehicle. Vehicle. Now this nerve here, this is cranial nerve 11. Accessory. It's a motor nerve. The word is any. And the last nerve here, which is the cranial nerve 12, hypoglossal nerve, also motor, and the word is how. What I just did, I highly recommend you doing the same. Go ahead.
Do they use those, like, and what are those last words called? Like the,
That's a mnemonic rule. Give me a minute. I'm going to summarize it for you.
I was gonna ask, do they use that like in a hospital setting, or is that just a?
No, for memorize. Okay. If if I'm going to be completely frank with you, I genuinely think that if I will approach, I don't know, a pediatrician and ask them to name all 12 cranial nerves and show them on the picture, I don't know if they can do it,
Because they don't use them.
which is fine because they don't use it. Okay? It's normal. Like, I'm not surprised. Okay? That makes sense? So, this right here is the same mnemonic rule that I just gave you. Okay? Does that make sense? And I want, do you mind if I'll erase the stuff that I just pictured because I need a clean pick?
Because it's gonna pop up on the lecture later, right?
Huh?
It's gonna pop up on a video lecture, right?
Yeah, it's going to be in the video, yeah. Yeah. So, what I wanted to do one more time is to draw a guiding line. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't memorize them either. If I need to find out, I'm just counting, you know? So you go this way. Does that make sense? That's how the pattern looks. Okay? So this table here summarizes the functions. Okay, I'm not going to read through it because we're going to address this nerves anyway. Okay? And let's jump straight to the individual nerves. Before we start though, in terms of like what should you focus on? You should focus on, well, anatomy, basically being able to identify, function, dysfunction, and testing the functionality. Let me give you an example. Let me explain what I mean by that using olfactory nerve as an example. Okay? And I mean it, like I'm going to highlight what is important. Okay? So what is the function? Oh, and yet, yes, you absolutely must know if each nerve is a motor, a sensory, or both. Okay? That can be a part of the question. So, function, smell, right? Dysfunction. When you damage the olfactory nerve, people develop a condition known as anosmia, inability to sense the smell. For instance, if somebody breaks their nose, the fracture often ruptures the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone, and that whacks up the olfactory nerve, okay? How do you test it? Yep. Give somebody to smell something smelly. Clear? We're going to continue in the same fashion with others. Optic nerves. So optic nerves extend from the eye, from the retina of the eye, to what's called optic chiasma. So I want you to understand that only these are the optic nerves. These continuations, these extensions, are optic tracts. So, well, sensory, motor, or both?
It's sensors.
Of course, It's vision, sensory. So vision, the function, damage results in the blindness. That's pretty straightforward, right? Testing, assessing vision and visual field. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so not rocket science. Oculomotor nerve. Okay. By the name, you can presume that it's a little bit more complicated. It moves your eyes. It does. That's not it. So here's the question for you. Huh? Here's the question. Your eye movements, conceptually, are they voluntary? Yes. So this nerve contains somatic fibers that connect to the so-called extrinsic eye muscles, and that will direct your eyeball. Okay, make sense? It also is responsible for raising your upper eyelid. Okay? Still motor, like I don't have to raise my eyelids. Well, I do, but I can keep them low, right? Now, there is a visceral motor response, visceral motor function. Autonomic fibers control the constriction of the pupil, not dilation, specifically constriction of the pupil. Now, do you see the sensory component here? The third bullet point? Did I highlight it?
No. So this is considered both, right?
No. We consider it motor. If I don't want to confuse you with the sensory component. We don't need it. It's not something that is an absolutely primary function of that nerve, okay? It's very secondary. Clear? So, the dysfunction, strabismus, lazy eye. Okay? Now, what else can happen if this nerve is damaged?
Double vision?
Well, that's strabismus. That's result of strabismus. But look at the functions of that nerve. What else can happen? No.
Drooping eyelids?
Nope. That can happen. Drooping eyelids, very good. What else?
Trouble focusing?
Nope. Well, yeah, but more,
You go blind?
it moves your eyelids, moves your eyeball, right? But what else does it do? What else does it control?
Constrict your pupil.
So they don't constrict, right? Constricting your pupils. So how would you test this nerve? Second?
Shining a light?
Okay. Pupillar reflex with pen light. What else can you do?
Have someone
Follow objects. That's about strabismus. We're going to talk about this in the unit 4. That's not necessarily a nerve, because if the nerve is damaged, if the nerve is whacked, the eye patch is not going to help.
Is that where they test it when we get a concussion?
Yeah, because it originates in the pons, well, in the midbrain, to be honest, like you can see it there. It starts in the midbrain. That's here, okay? And if concussion is severe enough, it can affect brainstem, and this is not great. If there is a concussion affecting brainstem, that is dangerous for actually like heart, cardiac function and respiratory function.
What's the point in a glass eye? Like when You have to get your eyeball replaced, they put something in there so it'll look like an eye,
Beauty?
but it ain't.
Just beauty. There's no
Okay.
function, no. Just
I didn't
so
think
people
so.
don't freak out,
Okay.
other people, okay? Now, two more nerves that move your eye. It's a fourth, trochlear, and the sixth, abducens. I deliberately put them next to the oculomotor. Oculomotor, trochlear, and abducens nerves responsible for the eye movement. Okay? Now, follow what I highlight. Will I ask you to identify specifically what movement you can't produce if your trochlear nerve is whacked?
No.
No. I can ask you which of the following nerves, if damaged, will impair the mobility of your eye. Clear? And you look at the list and there is trochlear nerve and say, that's trochlear nerve. Okay? So, extrinsic eye muscles, eye movement. Same is true for abducens nerve. Again, double vision, inability to move the eye in a certain direction. Okay? So, extrinsic muscle of an eye. How would you test? Like if you, hear me out, let's say you have a patient with strabismus, with lazy eye. You suspect that it's a nerve damage. So you ask them to like follow your finger and they cannot. Can you specify further if it's oculomotor or if it's one of these two?
Not without testing.
Well, how would you test? What test? Yeah, again. There's oculomotor, remember it controls the pupillar.
I don't know what they call it, but they put that
The air-
dye in your eye.
No, simpler. Just shine the light in the eye.
Oh,
If the light causes constriction, then it's not oculomotor.
Okay.
If it doesn't cause constriction, then it's oculomotor. Okay? Make sense? Which brings us to the cranial nerve number 5, which I kind of replaced. So, it's huge. So, I will not ask you about the origins or the divisions, okay? Instead, we're going to jump straight to function. This is the function. It's sensations from your face and the frontal part of your scalp. Yeah. Okay? And we're talking about somatic sensations. Touch, pressure, pain, temperature. As a matter of fact, when you receive local anesthesia for dental procedures, depending on, if it's, let's say I don't start talking dentistry with me because I'm horrible experiences. So I recently went through the procedure in my upper teeth. These branches were knocked out by the anesthetic.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because they put it in your jaw.
Yeah, if it's a lower, it's going to be these branches, but it's a trigeminal nerve, okay? Now, this nerve is both motor and sensory. So we figured out the sensory part, right? Right? It's sensations.
Yeah.
What about the motor function? Chewing. Yes, it's chewing. And now, I want you to acknowledge a couple of things. So your mouth, right? Wait. Don't get ahead of the train. Your mouth, what sensations, two sensations, does it generate?
Taste.
Taste and touch. Thank you. Taste and touch. Because you can feel the structure of the food, the texture, right? All textural things, all touch things, that's trigeminal nerve. It has nothing to do with the taste. Now, when you get the dental anesthesia, local anesthesia, and the procedure is over but anesthesia is still there, is it convenient to eat?
No.
No, because it whacks out your sensory branches, but also affects your motor transmission to the chewing muscles. Okay? Does that make sense? So, the imbalance, well, okay. You can check for, this is the corneal reflex, so basically you can check for sensations in the face, right? Or you can ask somebody to chew, to clench teeth, right? You can do that. Make sense? Okay. Safety pin. That's pretty obvious. What about the homeostatic imbalance? Well, we kind of discussed it. You lose sensations if it's damaged, right? And you lose the motor function, the ability to properly chew food. Okay? That make sense? There is another dysfunction associated with that nerve, which is called trigeminal neuralgia. This happens when this nerve is pinched by something, for instance, like the blood vessel, like in the improper location. And the problem is that it's not a permanent pain. It's a very sharp stabbing pain that is triggered by something. It can be a touch, okay, or eating cold food. And it's extremely painful.
So
Okay.
like a person who clench their teeth, like grind their teeth all the time, is that automatic or like?
That's automatic behavior.
So they're doing it on their own.
Meaning,
Some people don't notice they don't.
Right,
yeah, I do it.
so-
I do it. Yeah, when I'm sleeping, I know that I'm on teeth grinder. Yeah,
So is you doing it or is it a?
that's my CNS sending the signals, but it's not that I control it.
Okay, that's what
Yes.
I was asking.
No,
Okay.
I'm not
So
controlling.
that's not a control.
No,
thing.
that's
Okay.
not a controlled behavior.
Do we
I didn't think so.
know the difference for the
Branches,
the subcategories of
this,
like the off
did I highlight them?
okay, no. Just make
Facial nerve. Now, just, you may wonder why it's plural, facial nerves. There are two of them, they're symmetrical. Okay? They're on both sides, they come from both sides of the brainstem and spinal cord, brainstem. So, let's talk about function. Motor impulses to skeletal muscles of the face, which means your facial expressions. Okay? Autonomic impulses to a bunch of glands. So, simpler, think of it this way. Tears, snot, saliva. Okay? That's the motor output. What about sensory? It's both. It's sensory and motor. Taste, from the anterior 2/3 of a tongue. Clear?
Yes.
So, if it's whacked,
You're not gonna be able
okay, hang on. First of all, if it's whacked, what's going to happen to your ability to produce facial expressions?
to- it's gonna it's like sleep.
Paralysis of the facial muscles. Correct? Loss of taste sensation. Potentially, dry eye or teary eye. This all is called Bell's palsy. Often precipitated by herpes virus infection of that nerve,
You say what?
the herpes infection of the nerve, and it usually people do not ever fully recover. Like there are lingering effects. I have a buddy who had a definitely more than 15 years ago. And I met him a couple of years ago, and still, I can see there's still a little bit. There's a celebrity, actually, that still suffers from Bell's palsy.
This is
Sylvester
like-
Stallone, huh?
Oh, never mind.
Sylvester Stallone has Bell's palsy. This is why he has some, like a unique facial expressions in the manner of speech, okay? So testing, you can test the taste by, giving people something to taste. Or you can ask people to smile, move, move. Muscles of the face. I'm just going to skip the anatomy.
So what happens when your eyes can't make tears?
Again?
What's going on in there? When your eyes
Oh,
don't
because
make-
because the motor output does not reach the lacrimal gland. There are two options. Either it goes constantly, it went into like berserk mode,
Okay.
people tearing up, or they don't send the signals, then it doesn't produce tears, so you have to use eye drops. Mm-hmm.
But you don't access what's the, like, testing on the study guide for the,
Anna?
like, on our study guide, you don't access.
Really?
it
I'm gonna check. Give me a sec. I think I do.
They don't
But
ask
if I,
about the function.
yeah, but you have to be able to tell me, like, what if I want to see, how can I check the functionality of the oculomotor nerve? And if you think, okay, oculomotor nerve, what's the function? It moves the eyes. So we're gonna move the finger in front of the person, right? Vestibulocochlear, boring. Sensory, okay? Equilibrium and hearing. I'm not asking which branch transmits what, okay? The imbalance, deafness, or vertigo. I have an example from our own family. My mother-in-law developed a small benign tumor in her brain, which was pressing on the vestibulocochlear nerve.
Oh, yeah.
Lo and behold, she has a very much reduced hearing in one of her ears since then. And until the tumor resolved, she had vertigo attacks pretty regularly, okay?
And that's, you can't walk straight or stand.
No. It's not a permanent thing, but it probably just pressed from time to time, and that triggered the vertigo.
Like when
Yeah.
people get on a plane,
Huh?
like when people fly off the plane.
Well, I can't comment on that. It just, she would lose balance. She would just have like, her head would spin, huh? Like a, yeah, pretty much. Yes. Yes.
We skipped this.
We did. I just skipped. It's
Okay,
the
I'm just
facial
making
nerve.
sure. Okay.
We did. I just skipped the picture. Glossopharyngeal nerve. Mixed.
So we don't need to know how to test the cochlear.
Hearing and balance.
Oh,
Ask a person. Okay.
okay. I just
Ask a
didn't know if you
person-
mentioned it and I missed it.
Ask a person if they can hear shit, and ask a person if they can stand on one foot.
Sorry.
That's it. No, there are some testings that are more complicated than others, okay? So glossopharyngeal, mixed. So let's talk about motor outputs. So motor fibers control the process of swallowing. Effectively, glossopharyngeal nerve. Oh, there is a reflex that is inextricably linked to swallowing. It's a gag reflex. So this nerve is the part of a gag reflex. Make sense? The parasympathetic fibers, salivary glands. Okay? So you can imagine if this nerve is whacked, right, the person will have impaired gag reflex and will not be able to produce adequate amount of saliva. They will still produce saliva by other two glands, but parotid will not work. Okay? Now, what about sensory fibers? So first of all, touch pressure pain from pharynx and a back of the tongue. Now, hear me out. If I will try to sample my throat, or somebody else will try to sample my throat for bacteria with the cotton swab, if they go way too deep or way too intense, can they trigger gag reflex?
Yes.
Because the sensory input transmitted through glossopharyngeal nerve triggers the motor response, gag reflex, also delivered by glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay? That makes sense? So therefore, touch pressure pain in the throat. That's one. Two, taste from the back of a tongue, posterior third. And last but not least, levels of oxygen carbon dioxide in the blood and blood pressure. You see carotid sinuses here that I highlight. So basically you have carotid arteries, okay? And the receptors in the carotid arteries constantly monitor the pressure, the blood pressure, and the content, like gas content of your blood, the arterial gases. And if they deviate from norm, they will change cardiac activity. For instance, if your blood pressure drops, they will send the signals that the brainstem will send the signal to the heart, like, dude, let's pump faster, you know? Okay, make sense? So, impaired swallowing and taste in case of injury, and checking, gag and swallowing reflexes, posterior third of the tongue for taste.
So I have a question. So you know how cancer patients have like chemo radiation on their throat?
Mm-hmm.
Do that damage their
It can. It can. If it damages, but right now, now I know firsthand, not because of the cancer, but a buddy of mine works in that profession. The focusing of the gamma ray, the radiation on the tumor, is done in such a precise manner that virtually no other structures are damaged, like minimal collateral damage. Okay. Vagus nerves, one of the most important and the simplest nerves to understand. So function, well, mixed. Motor fibers, heart, lungs, and abdominal viscera. In other words, vagus nerve controls your thoracic and abdominal, but not pelvic organs. Am I clear? Mm-hmm. And transmits sensory inputs back from those organs to the CNS. Make sense? So it's a two-way road from the brain to the thoracic and abdominal organs and back. Make sense? It's a huge nerve. Not really super important, but position of the larynx and pharynx. And turns out your epiglottis, the valve that closes your trachea when you swallow, has taste buds. You can taste with your epiglottis. Okay? But for the most part, like if this nerve is damaged, voice box can be affected. That's larynx and pharynx. But for the most part, it's going to be internal organs, and the consequences will be absolutely devastating. So
So the people who have to put that thing up to their neck to talk.
that's different. That is different. So digestive system motility, you see, no, that is because they have the throat cancer, and it had to be removed, and they cannot swallow anymore, okay? Like, there is no entire pipe, so to say.
Okay.
Make sense?
So when they have, you said about when they have the tray and then they have to put the microphone up there?
Accessory nerves, boring, very boring.
So how do
Yes.
they test for that?
Oh, yes, great question. So they both control muscles of throat, so ability to swallow. But honestly, if vagus nerve is whacked, it will be a shit show in the thorax and abdomen. Digestive problems, heart rate problems, respiratory issues, like that's not good, okay? Accessory nerve is weird. You can see that it originates in the spinal cord, okay? On the right, on the image. So we still consider it a cranial nerve, only because it basically runs through the cranium, okay? Function, we consider it motor. Trapezius and sternocleidomastoid muscles. So, turning, moving head and neck. The damage on one side makes the head turn to that side and the shoulder is dropping.
Oh, that's why people be doing this. Like they can't move.
Depends, because sometimes it's just some kind of a bone issue. Testing. Rotate the head, shrug shoulders.
Rotate head.
Shrug shoulders, because that's what it does. And finally, hypoglossal, under the tongue. It's the motor nerve. Tongue movements. That's it. So, testing. Move the tongue. Damage. Problems in speech and swallowing. Why swallowing? Speech understood, right? You need your tongue to speak.
Yes.
You use your tongue to push the food back in the pharynx. So that's a problem. Okay? We're good? Okay. Questions?